Welcome back, dear viewers, on this one-on-one with Mr. Njomo Cyril, whom we want to get a serious insight on certain things. And so now we shall be talking on the American Parliament or Congress that has decided to intrude into the marriage of Cameroon. And this time they have decided that peace has to come in Cameroon. So the question we are asking, is this a slow but sure bleak or blink future for President Biya's regime? That is what we are asking. Mr. Njomo Cyril, you are somebody who follows the news a lot. You must have heard that the American Congress has decided to come in. They had to discuss it seriously, the Congress, and there are a few of them who had to spearhead this in the discussion. They have given some resolutions that there should be another dialogue, inclusive dialogue with a third party. And in that dialogue, they should make sure that peace comes back and so many other things.
Mr. Mwamba Williams, we are there inside international relations and how the UN function, okay? The UN function with a principle that wherever there is insecurity, they have a say. And they always make sure that they hold regular meetings to have a say. So in the light, the US has always known themselves to be the gendarme of the world, and by that virtue or by that right, they have, it's not the first time that they are giving sound warnings to the Yaoundé administration to make peace prevail in the restive region of Northwest and the Southwest. And we are there in total intrusion in democratization. And I'm going to give you some of the motivation that can push the US Congress to sit and talk about Cameroon. Then after that, I'm going also to talk about some of their limitations up to where the action that they start and took can have implication on the Yaoundé administration. First, their motivation is following the number of deaths and atrocity that the Northwest or the restive region of the Northwest and the Southwest have recorded these last days. I did tell you some time ago that Cameroon has moved from the 27th position as to the 9th position worldwide on the classification of country with terrorism and atrocity. And the Norwegian refugee camp also classified Cameroon like Cameroon crisis or the Anglophone crisis like one of the most neglected crises around the world. So, following these two prevailing contexts, it is but of interest to the U.S. Congress to pronounce itself because there is a serious situation of human rights violation as far as the management of the Cameroon Anglophone crisis is concerned. Secondly, the growing use of military approach. For example, what is happening in Bamenda these days? It is a population that is trapped into the war between the separatists and the military. Because when there is prolonged lockdown and people cannot go about their activities, they cannot put food on their table, it creates other malaise in the family that the government sometimes might not measure and the separatists neither. So it is the government, it is the U.S. Congress interest to sound this to the hearing of the United Nations, who have a permanent supervision over Cameroon, because we have signed international treaty that de facto subdue us to international treaty, including that of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I think as a concerned body, the U.S. Congress just wants to sound that. So that those could be some of the motivation they have behind their mind. They can go further. They can go further to impose sanctions, to propose to their government to impose sanctions on Cameroon. And you know, something coming from the Congress sometimes could be considered, especially when we are talking at a time where the U.S. is left with just some few days for their November election, and everything is being done to make the U.S. look like a very clean and advanced democratized country. So they could do everything to make polish their image before the world. The U.S. also is known to give financial aid, military aid to Cameroon. So this call could also be to limit some of those benefits, humanitarian benefits, financial benefits, military assistance that the U.S. government gives to Cameroon as a war fighting measure. I want to land with another manifestation, what move the U.S. can take if the government insists in their methods to maintain war. The support they give to the NGO could be thwarted. Okay? They give a lot of support to the NGO. I personally have benefited on so many training on hate speech, on peace building, sponsored by UN NGO, by the US NGO. So I think those are some of the measures that they can take if the government does not yield to their call. But there are some limitations, and it's good that we talk about it. It sounds like imperialism. That once Cameroon, since 1960, got its independence, it is unheard of that another Congress will sit elsewhere in their own country, where they also have human rights challenges. We still have the Black Lives Matter struggle that is on. We still have so many other black people that have been killed. We have black Americans almost every day on the streets decrying the racism growing in their country. And it's that same country that stands and starts brandishing lessons to Cameroonians. So we are at the place to ask ourselves, is this not imperialism in broad daylight? And that could be one of their limitations. We could also talk about abuse. This could be abuse of human rights. We're a sovereign state. We're a state that is regularly registered and pay our contribution to the United Nations. And so the United Nations here supposed to defend us when the U.S. Congress gets up and start sending threatening messages to our government. It's the U.S. because we need to report the case to the U.S. so that the U.S. can stop another member country to be shouting another member country, because
they are intervened in other areas and solutions have come.
Have been able to move from stage to stage. So I'm at the level of their limitation. These are claims that Cameroon government could come up with to say that no, you don't have the right to do what you are doing. But also, they have the limitation at the level of their economic and social interests, because people really think that the U.S. benefit a lot from doing business with Cameroon. That is not always totally true. Maybe their individual companies that are stationed in Cameroon can be flying back. But I want to tell you, as it stands, France is the first country that do business with Cameroon, followed by China. The U.S. might come at the 6th position. So economically benefiting, I don't see, they have a limitation that most of their investment is not in Cameroon, and so even if they were to act, it will not be a priority to the U.S. administration as it stands.
Okay, due to time, we have less than 10 minutes, but let's just take 4 points here. They talk of immediate ceasefire, they talk on sanctions on some government officials or leaders and separatist leaders also. They talk on dialogue with third parties to mediate. Then they talk of an end of school boycotts. Okay, now, just shortly, this immediate ceasefire we've been talking about. Now, if they come and be talking immediate ceasefire, how do you think, what role do you think they can play to make sure that this ceasefire comes to an end?
They have so many ways to act. They have been able to act before. And I was happy that this message was not only sent to our government, but equally to the separatists. As to say that our citizens that are there, they identify them, they know them, so their stay there could have issues if they don't yield to the decision of an immediate ceasefire. And so don't be surprised in the day ahead if at all something could be done following their outing, that some separatist leaders spotted in the diaspora could start supporting theses like let's go back to school, or let's observe ceasefire. We have had situation in the northwest where some separatists come out in camera and make sure that they see a UN car passing, they stop, they discuss, and send on social media. All those things are tactics to answer to these international houses like the U.S. Congress that truly we are respecting your decision that you have taken. We are not attacking civilian and other things. So those are some of the things that can be done to show respond to their call. If not, as I told you, they can sanction some of them. But we have talked before now, we have talked about the economic benefit that Cameroon benefits. Previously, before now, it was AGOA. Now they are sponsoring a lot of NGO. They have what they call the National Democracy Fund, something like that. That person have benefited, and they lodge Cameroonian in big hotels, train you for days. They have intervened in so many. You have known about the Young African Leadership Initiative project that trained Africans to become leaders. Those are avenues through which they
when
can
they talk
suspend.
of sanction on these separatist leaders and government leaders, now, what do you think? Should it be the separatist leaders on ground zero or those abroad who are just making noise or whatsoever? Because those on ground zero are really carrying on the perpetration of evil and maybe some other atrocities that is being condemned.
Establishing the link between the separatists on ground zero and those spotted in the diaspora is not an easy task, because when somebody holds a gun, he thinks he has power, and sometimes he's not very sure and certain that if instruction comes from their leaders abroad, they are going to yield to.
Yeah.
Okay, so this message is first sent to those leaders of the separatist faction that are spotted in the diaspora, that we know where you are, and we could make moves so that you have difficulties in surviving here. Okay, international warrant has already been launched by Cameroon. So if the US just decide, or the UN just decide to acknowledge the international warrant of arrest, they could be arrested anytime.
The diplomats said they don't care about what they do in America as far as they respect their constitution.
That is what but I'm telling you that if they have to keep exacerbating the conflict, if they have to keep firing the conflict, if they have to keep encouraging radicalization of the people, then it's the place of the UN to have a Security Council where they will listen the issue, and definitely the U.S. Congress will be part of the speakers. And when they listen to them with facts, they can establish and give rights to Cameroon that have sent out an international warrant arrest, and these people could be picked up at any
this
time.
third party that is going to mediate, if only there is a kind of mediation, which country and maybe some individuals that you think?
Before now, the Swiss talk was announced.
Yeah.
Then the Yaoundé administration decided at a time, some few days after, to jump to the state media and announce the major national dialogue that turned out to be a monologue and has clocked its first anniversary now. And I will not be weak to think that the Swiss still stands a better chance to mediate the conflict. Even though deeply in me, I always think that our problems are best solved in-house than inviting the neighbor, because we best know what we hold as what we share in common. We have always made an appeal to Mr. Biya, who happened to be the rapporteur of a commission that the then President of the Republic, Amadou Ahidjo, commissioned them to the Southwest together with the senior citizen, Dorothy Njomo. And he still have the report. We have always advocated that he should go back to the drawer, remove the report and read, then start acting towards that report. He acknowledged in a peace talk in Paris, France, that the problem of the Anglophone is that they have had a master plan to assimilate the Anglophone. And so if you just stop that plan, the Anglophones are going to be fine.
10 seconds. What's your wish for the end of school boycott?
Personally, I've always been an advocate of back to school.
Okay.
But I do not like pronouncing myself, because the way the government interprets back to school is very different from the way the population understands it.
Okay.
And so I believe that education should keep on. I was part of those at the time who advocated for building camps so that people could be trained and educated even under trees. Education should be going on why the Anglophone crisis is seeking a genuine solution.
Mr. Njomo Cyril, thank you for maybe sacrificing your breath to save Cameroonians.
That is what we are trying to do. We take vulnerable action, vulnerable move to make sure that people have a bit of what we share in common. This country is your responsibility, it's my responsibility to build it, and so we cannot blink our eye when we are called to serve the people. And we were here gladly serving you, and we hope, even if we did some few mistakes, please pardon us. Our intention was to do good and not to cause harm.
Dear viewers, this is where we come to an end of this one-on-one with Mr. Njomo Cyril, who decided to sacrifice his breath for about 2 hours to educate Cameroonians and Cameroon in order to bring a fine Cameroon back in this globe. This is where we'll say thank you. See you next time.